Yay, how lovely to see all of you this morning. What is going on with our weather? And somebody reminded me you're in North Carolina, and I went, oh yeah, that's right. That's right. So welcome to the Triangle Center for Spiritual Living. Is there anyone that's here for the very first time? It's kind of technically it's your second time. Anyway, my name is Reverend Dusty Ripplemeyer. I am the spiritual director of this amazing community. And we are a Science of Mind community, which means that we follow the teachings of Ernest Holmes to the degree that he ever wanted anyone to follow him. He liked to be what he called open at the top, open for always more new information to be coming in. So we believe that there's one God, that God is benevolent and loving and is within us and surrounds us, that its creative power is our creative power, and that we, through that creative process, we can create lives that we love to live and create worlds that everyone loves to live in. So I'm glad that you're here. Thank you. Thank you to all of the people who have allowed us to come into their living rooms today through the power of technology. Thank you very much for joining us.
This morning's reading of the day is from Eckhart Tolle. He says, I cannot tell you any spiritual truth that deep within you don't already know. All I can do is remind you of what you have forgotten.
So welcome to those of you that may have just arrived in the sanctuary. The theme for the month of January is the living spirit. Spirit is calling, and my talk title today is Here's Your Bliss. What is bliss? Seems like a pretty good question. What is bliss? Now, this time a year ago, January 2016, we began an adventure on Wednesday evenings called Destination Transformation. And the first book that we dove into was called The Bliss Experiment by Sean Meshor. Now, he says that it's very hard to describe bliss because it is so vast, so boundless, so immeasurable that it encompasses every possible word that has ever been invented. And our usual ways for describing things by using our senses of hearing, sight, touch, smell, and taste just do not work with bliss. It would be like trying to adequately describe the Grand Canyon to someone who had never seen it before. Bliss must be personally experienced. It can't just be simply talked about. Sean Meshor said that even writing a book about bliss didn't really get him all that much closer to being fully able to describe it, but he gave it a pretty good shot. So in his definition, he has 5 main points, and this morning we're going to talk about 3 of them. Now, the first main point is bliss is where happiness, meaning, and truth converge. Now, back of this idea of bliss is that fundamentally each of us as human beings on the planet want to be happy. We want to lead lives that are meaningful, and we want to know the truth. Now, in general, all of these qualities are important to us and pretty much equally. Now, we all strive for bliss, whether we do it consciously or we do it unconsciously. Part of the human condition is to look for it externally, in the things, the relationships, and the circumstances of our lives. We buy into the race consciousness idea that any number of external things will be able to provide for us the happiness and the meaning that we want to experience in our lives. So we pursue it through fame or luxury or money or power or beauty or sex or romance, because we think that those things, we've been told those things, we believe, we've bought into the idea that those things will make us happy. The problem is that money and all of these objects of luxury are external to us. And while fulfilling some superficial desires, they could never in any way fulfill the deeper desires that we have for peace or love or freedom or grace. But we've been told and trained from a very early age to look to the material world for comfort. A vast array of material objects is calling out to our senses all of the time. We are bombarded every moment of every day, from the moment we wake up to the moment that we go to sleep. But the truth is that these things are not going to fulfill us. They are not going to bring us the happiness that we want. And by going and trying to do it through luxury or money, the truth is that we really don't want luxury or money at all. What we really want is a quality, a way of feeling, or a way of being that is represented by those things, by those objects that we think that we want. The thing becomes an intermediary of the underlying qualities that we actually really desire. And by using the thing as an intermediary, it's indirect, it's inconsistent, it's inefficient, and it's very uncertain. What happens if you don't get the thing that you want? Does that mean that you're never going to ever experience that quality ever in your life? You may, and you'll laugh, but you may have had the experience that you wanted something for a particular reason. And then you found when you got that thing that you didn't experience the thing that you thought and wanted to get and to experience anyway. Or maybe you experienced that quality, but you only experienced it for a very short time. Do you know what I'm talking about? Now, for others, it's not money and luxury, it's sex and romance. We, as human beings, all of us, both men and women alike, spend a lot of time thinking about them, pursuing them, or engaging in them. Now, it's probably not surprising to most of you that pursuing sex as a method of obtaining happiness is being called into question. But many of you might be a little resistant to hearing that very same thing about romance or love. But studies show that the truth is that romance as a strategy for finding and maintaining happiness is no better than sex. Think about it. Think about it from the truth of who we are as spiritual beings. We already have everything we could ever possibly need within us. To believe that we need sex and romance is to become dependent on someone else for our fulfillment. And when we do that, our focus is outside of ourselves. And if you've been coming here for any length of time, you would have heard someone say that we live our lives from the inside out, not from the outside in. Nothing you need is out there. You are already whole, perfect, and complete. And when we believe that our happiness is out there, tied to another person, whether that's for sex or for romance or for anything else, we're taking an indirect approach to happiness, an approach that is very uncertain. The bottom line is that love is not something we need to acquire from outside of us. It is a quality, and the capacity that we already have within us, that we arrived on the planet with. It is an internal process of expanding our ability to feel and to express love in any situation, in any circumstance, in any relationship, all of the time. That is real love. Now, others might gravitate to the conscious pursuit of power or fame or beauty. These two, if we use them as a conscious strategy for obtaining happiness, is actually quite disastrous. All of them, fame, power, and beauty, they just don't last. They fade away. Beauty fades, maybe, or at least it shifts from the beauty that raised consciousness calls beauty, right? It shifts. I think we're all beautiful. And power and fame, they come and go at the drop of a hat. Just, they're here one day, then they're gone the next, right? We know people in history who have experienced that. So if you think about it, by pursuing power and beauty and fame, we have made ourselves dependent on the opinion of someone else, or made ourselves dependent on something else, something outside of ourselves, which in fact we have very little or absolutely no control over. This can make us very insecure. Can you see how that would happen? And it not only makes us insecure, but it also can generate fear or helplessness or anxiety. Relying on people for our happiness also makes us more self-conscious and more self-absorbed. We become hyper-aware and hyper-vigilant about our image or about our actions in the world. And what a scary way I think that would be to live, always waiting for the other shoe to drop, believing that all of it could simply go away at a moment's notice. No thanks. Now, Sean's second point in his definition of bliss is an innate state of inner joy. It's constant, always available, and undisturbed by outside influences or external circumstances. Constant, available, undisturbed. And we all have the capacity for it, no matter our age, our religion, our gender, our race, our physical abilities, or our mental capacity. We all have the capacity for it. It is our birthright. Like love, it arrived on the planet when we did, within us. Oh, hello. No wonder so many of us might say that we have never experienced a moment of bliss in our life. We have been looking in all of the wrong places for it. Who knew? In the place that we never thought to look, inside ourselves. Now, with this awareness, the secret to finding bliss is simple, according to Sean Mashore. It's a process of reversing our orientation inwardly instead of outwardly, of removing and revealing. We must strip away our expectation and learned beliefs that external conditions can truly satisfy us. Instead, we must learn to identify, appreciate, and tap into the reservoir of super satisfaction that is already extant inside us, requiring no external environment, situation, or circumstance whatsoever. The bottom line is that bliss can't really be attained. How can we attain something we already have? It's already within us. The soul simply realizes that bliss simply is. It is what remains after everything that's external and fleeting dissolves. The bottom line is that we have to remember that everything in the world of form is impermanent, that it is constantly in a state of flux, that the only thing constant and enduring is that which is within us, the power and presence of God, the power and presence of love, the power and presence of bliss. For me, this is bliss consciousness, standing in the truth of who and what we are at our very core, divine emanations of God, created in the image and likeness of God, and like God, already whole, perfect, and complete. The spark of the divine within us contains everything we could ever need. Bliss is already within us, and when we come to that understanding, when we come to that realization, that truth can completely transform the way that we understand and the way that we live in our world today. Completely transform it. We all possess an infinite reservoir of bliss. We just haven't activated it yet. We just haven't reached our full potential. So how can we reach our full potential? Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss. If you do follow your bliss, you put yourself on a kind of track that has been there all the while waiting for you. And the life you ought to be living is the life that you are living. So how do we know if we're following our bliss? Abraham would say that we have within us an internal emotional guidance system. That as we move through the experiences of our lives, we think things about what we are experiencing. Now, some of the things that we think we will label as good, and some of the things that we think we will label as bad. And we will feel good when we think good things, and we will feel bad when we think bad things. So this emotional guidance system will allow us to choose the thoughts that continually move us toward feeling good. By paying attention to this emotional guidance system, to how we're feeling at any given moment, to how we feel around the things that we're thinking, and by reaching for the best feeling thought that we can possibly grab onto, no matter where we are, no matter what we're doing, no matter what we are experiencing, when we can do that, then we open ourselves up to experience bliss. Sean Mashor's third point says that bliss is a state of unity, transcendence, completeness, knowingness, wholeness, and uplifted consciousness. It is a feeling of oneness and connection with all creation. So bliss is a state of total connection, a state in which the sense of separation simply fades away, a state in which our consciousness expands to include everything. There is no sense of a separate me, only oneness, only unity. Everything is one. Bliss is the eternal, forever unchanging reality that permeates the universe. I don't know about you, but I used to think that bliss was like the highest amount of happiness that you could have. Like if you had a spectrum of happiness, that bliss would be down there on the very top end, right? But now the way I feel is that now the way I hear this is it's something completely different. something completely different. It is on a totally different plane, totally different octave than plain old, ordinary, everyday happiness. Joseph Campbell says, anyone who has had an experience of mystery knows that there is a dimension of the universe that is not that which is available to the senses. There is a pertinent saying in one of the Upanishads. When before the beauty of a sunset or of a mountain you pause and exclaim, "Ah," you are participating in divinity. Such a moment of participation involves the realization of the wonder and sheer beauty of existence. People living in the world of nature experience such moments every day. They live in the recognition of something that is so much greater than the human dimension. Perhaps you can remember a moment when you experienced something like this. Now, this bliss then is the sudden awareness of the wonder and the mystery and the majesty of life itself, of the divine itself. It is the astonishing recollection of something that someone has forgotten simply because it's always present, simply because it's always there. It is an abiding amazement that lies just beneath the surface of our conscious awareness. One that in only rare moments actually breaks through into our ordinary awareness. It may be that when we were children, before we learned how to forget the obvious, that we knew this wonder in a more constant, more innocent, and more luminous way. As we age, however, we lose our sense of the intimate connection of all things, of the presence of God within all of creation. As we age, we allow habit to dispel awe, inevitability to banish delight, and the repetitive nature of our experiences to dull the sense of surprise and excitement. Thereafter, there are only fleeting moments scattered throughout our lives when in one moment we are brought to a pause or we are brought to our knees by a sudden, unanticipated sense of unity, of transcendence, of completeness, of knowingness, of wholeness, or of beauty. A moment when our defenses momentarily relax and we catch a glimpse of bliss. I think it may happen more often than we ourselves realize. I think it may happen and we pass it off as emotionality or silliness or no big deal. But I will tell you that it does happen, and I know that it happens because I have the best seat in this house. I look out at you, and I recognize the moments in which you feel the presence of God. I look out at you, and I capture the aha moment as it unfolds before you. I see it in the tears streaming down your face. I witness it in the momentary flash of understanding that crosses your face. I see it in the way you physically soften when your heart cracks open and the way you dance with unbridled joy to the words and the music of a song that particularly touches your soul. The invitation today is to allow yourself to recognize it and then to call it what it is, bliss. We hosted a concert last Friday night. It was a wonderful evening in which we were not only entertained by the amazing singer-songwriter Bob Sima, but made beautifully aware of our perhaps conscious, but probably more often unconscious participation in this process of becoming less available to bliss. So he told a story. He told a story about the first time that he went to the circus. It was the Ringley Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, greatest show on earth. And he was 6 years old. It was the first time that he had ever seen a tiger or a lion. It was the first time that he had ever seen a high wire act or a group of clowns. And he remembered being completely in awe about all of it. He experienced such bliss that his parents made it a point to take him back year and year and year again. Now, in the beginning, when he went, he felt and continued to feel that awe, but the magic seemed to fade over time. And he said, doesn't it seem like the magic in life seems to fade, especially when we take things for granted? And so he asked us to go back to the first time that we felt awe, to go back to the beginning. And then he asked us, what if we were to live each moment as if it were the first breath, the first kiss, the first sunrise, the first mountain range, first aha moment. In a song called 1,000 Cups of Tea, he sang, 1,000 cups of tea, but not like this one. 1,000 suns will rise, but not one. 1,000 gifts received, but not like this one. 1,000 passing smiles, but not like this one. 1,000 hands will hold, but not like this one. 1,000 lives conceived, but not like this one. 1,000 I love yous, but not like this one. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to the first time. With a brand new pair of eyes, so that we may finally see. The invitation today is to go back to the beginning, to remember who and what we are at our very core, divine emanations of God, to go back to the first time and to see with new eyes. And I will tell you that if we were to do that, that we will see that bliss is right here where it has always been and will always be, right here where it has always been inside of us and surrounding us. And that all we have to do is to open and to be available to experience it. And so it is. So I just invite us to turn within. To allow ourselves to still our minds. And to bring up into our awareness the power and presence of God. To know that it is truly who we are. To know that its love is our love, its bliss is our bliss, its peace is our peace, its abundance is our abundance. To know that we were created by it, can never be separate from it. That it guides, guards, fuels, funds, and supports us. And it is so willing and grateful to do so. And it is from this place, this divine unity with all that there is, I speak these words about and for each of us this morning. Truly knowing that we are whole, perfect, and complete. That there is absolutely nothing outside of us that can make us any more completer. That there is ease and grace around us, letting loose our belief that there is. Letting loose this way of living in which we rely on someone or something else outside of ourselves and instead rely on the power and presence of God within us. I claim and know that the bliss that we so desire, this happiness, this meaningful life, this awareness of the truth, is already ours. And I proclaim for us that we step into that life with grace and with ease. That truly there is nothing that can get in our way of our experiencing the bliss that we are. And I'm so grateful to know this truth, so grateful to speak these words, so grateful for the power of prayer, knowing that these words are loosed into a law that only ever says yes, that they are made whole, perfect, and complete, even as they are spoken. And so I speak them and I release them. And I invite everyone here this morning to anchor it for yourselves and for each other, simply by saying, and so it is. Amen. 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 So now the little communication card. Please take it out again, turn it over to the back. On the first line there is, it says, my next step is, so if there was something in the message or something in the music that inspired a next step, please put it down, because we can hold that for you then throughout the week, and we can know that it is the truth of who you are. If you have any prayer that you would also like us to pray for you over the week, please let us know. Reverend Betty, Reverend Bill, and myself and all of the practitioners will pray all of those prayers throughout the week. So please don't leave with anything heavy on your heart. Please put it on the card and put the card in the baskets as they come by. Speaking of baskets, it's time for our conscious giving. And as the baskets are coming forward, please take your gift, hold it against your heart, and allow yourself a moment of truly recognizing how abundant we really are.